So I have Jen Ryan here, international bestseller and certified success coach. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah.
And I am just so excited to have you. So I wanted to just have you go ahead and kind of tell your story. But one of the things that I appreciated about your story was just that I think so many people will find it relatable because it really kind of, let's just start, but basically you get this phone call that just kind of changed the course of your life, right? Everything just kind of changed.
Yeah. So the setting is I'm getting ready for Labor Day weekend, and one of my good friends was getting married, and it was Thursday afternoon. Her wedding was on Friday in the Cape, which is in Massachusetts, and then from the Cape, I was coming back home for like literally 5 minutes. Just to use a little girl's room. And then on my way through, and then I was driving to Vermont, catching a ferry and going to the Adirondacks. So I was actually thinking about this morning, which the funny thing is I'm from Vermont, and going to Burlington, Vermont was interesting that I would end up there the weekend that this happened. So
can I stop you? I'm sorry. My phone is like beeping. I guess I took it off the hook and I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm wondering if
I cannot hear it. I can't hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to start over if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
I apologize. Oh my goodness. Okay.
No, it's you know what? It's all fun. It's all don't apologize for anything.
You're fun. I like you. All right. So we're here with Jen Ryan, and you're international best-selling author. You're also a certified success coach, and we're going to talk about your story, which I'm super excited to talk about. In reading your story, I found it very relatable. I actually had a personal story of my own that's very, a little bit on the edge of similar. And I think this will be very relatable to people because there's often a time in your life of kind of looking at your life in a different way where some event happens. And yours happened, you were on your way to a wedding. Is that right?
That is right. Yes.
So do you want to kind of just take us through that story, kind of how that happened?
Sure. So it is a few years ago, Labor Day weekend. It's Thursday afternoon. I literally was zipping my suitcase to go on this long weekend from the wedding down in Massachusetts. From the wedding, my bag was already packed to go on another trip, which would then take me to Burlington, Vermont, catch the ferry, go to the Adirondacks to finish out this long, 6-day trip that I had. And as I'm zipping up my suitcase and going through the mental check of, do you have everything? The phone rings, and I look at the phone and it's work. And I'm thinking, why are they calling me, right? They know I'm on vacation, right? So I said, let me just take this call, and so I can then be done with it, and then I can go enjoy my weekend. So it's the call nobody wants to hear. It came out of nowhere. Like it wasn't like come to the office and bring your computer call, right? It was just a call. Hey, and it's long story short, it was the call to let me know that the company was going in a new direction and that my position was being eliminated.
Wow.
And I talk about whiplash, talk about come out of left field. I am like, what? Like, and when you work in corporate America and you see other people get laid off, and I wasn't the only one to get laid off, but usually you hear some buzz,
right?
You hear it coming, right? Like the bees are buzz, right? Nothing, like, oh, and I was just shocked, and I'm shocked, and I am like, and I'm a pretty tough cookie, and I can handle things, but I was just like, and now I've got to go to this wedding,
right?
It's the rehearsal dinner, the wedding's the next day, festivities, and then festivities in the Adirondacks with a bunch of friends, and I can't process this.
Yeah.
And I knew that my first thing I had to hit was right in front of me, which was the wedding. And I didn't want anyone to know, A, because I hadn't processed it, and B, it's her day.
Right.
So how dare I ruin her day and make it about me? And that wasn't happening. And then even going to the Adirondacks, I didn't want to be the center of attention. I didn't want to play the victim card. I hadn't processed it. I didn't want anyone to know, because even though it wasn't anything I had done, it's not like I lost an account and got fired. It's like we all got fired, essentially laid off. But
right.
I was still very shameful. I was embarrassed. I was scared. I was fearful. So I told only one person in the Adirondacks, which was one of my best friends. I was at her house. It's like, I don't want your husband to know. I don't want anybody else to know.
Right.
And so I kept that inside all weekend. And her and I did manage to sneak away and get a hike, just the two of us. And I just remember saying, actually, I remembered saying this later, but I didn't remember saying it on the hike until a couple weeks ago. And she said, I remember on that hike, you said, I will never hear those words again, because everything's kind of a thought.
Yeah.
And I remember, later saying, I just knew that was Al. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I will never hear those words again.
Right.
I will never let somebody hold my power like that again.
So that was a real shift for you, because you had really been involved with your career. I mean, this was really a big thing for you.
So I had started off in my 20s as an entrepreneur. And, we need to change and we need to evolve. And I kind of like been there, done that. I was ready for something new. Again, didn't know. And I had the opportunity to move to Tennessee, and I sold my business, and I was there 1 year, and it just didn't work out. Come to find out, I am truly a New England girl, and that's a whole nother long story for a much bigger bottle of wine, right? Instead of my tea here. But no, like seriously. So I came to New Hampshire to clear my head, and that was, I don't know how many years ago, but either my head's cleared or I'm still clearing, because I'm still here. I bought a house and bunkered in. And when this happened, I kind of, and that's why it's kind of ironic that I ended up back in Vermont the weekend this happened, is I didn't go back to Vermont because I had an identity crisis, much like the identity crisis of losing my job. And I didn't go back to Vermont because I was shameful, because I made a mistake or I failed by moving and it didn't work out. And so we're kind of taught that when something doesn't work out, it's a failure.
So did you feel like you really had to stay there to make this work one way or another? Is that kind of the feeling you had?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely couldn't go back to Vermont. I couldn't go back to Tennessee. I mean, I could, but in my brain, I couldn't. So I made it work here in New Hampshire. And so I took the job because, I needed a job. I needed, I needed food. I needed to pay my rent.
Right,
and,
sure.
And then you just get caught up in the bonuses and the benefits and the constant paycheck. And, so even though I had kind of outgrown my job and it wasn't really fulfilling, there were still things that I liked about my job, but I was ready for more, but was too fearful to go out on my own, because why would you do that? That would be crazy. Why would you give up a job when you have security? So when that happens, you're kind of forced to look at things, and you're forced to, I could have gotten a job. I could have definitely, with the company that I worked for in my industry, I could have gotten a job. I had amazing training. I mean, I have no regrets. The corporate world was very good to me, and I have a lot of lessons, but I had just outgrown it. So I was in what you call quit and stay mode. I had quit, but I was still there. So that forced me to do it. And it forced me to realize that I really was an entrepreneur at heart. And I just said, I will never hear those words again.
So was that actually powerful in some ways, like just to really not rely on anybody else, or did you feel kind of vulnerable at that point?
Yeah, I felt all of those emotions at once. I was very scared. I was scared about, what was I going to do? How was I going to pay my mortgage? Because now I have a house and you have bigger bills, and, how was I going to do this? And so I was empowered, but scared all at the same time. And so I did what so I'm a natural type A, get her done kind of girl. And about halfway through my corporate world journey, I found myself on my yoga mat. And I realized that my yoga mat was really my laboratory, but I never realized how important that was. And it was really about coming on my yoga mat and connecting inward and learning to be on my yoga mat. I mean, literally, emotionally, physically, mentally be on my yoga mat. And so I had already kind of started to practice that journey, and it had already started to create shifts in me, and probably why working for corporate America wasn't fulfilling anymore, because the only true failure is not connecting to yourself.
Yeah.
That's in my opinion, when we try something and it doesn't work, and I'm a human being, and it will still happen to me. It has happened since, and it will happen again. But we go, oh, I failed.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can release some of the emotion, because when emotions are high, intelligence are low, right? And you can take away some of the emotion of the equation, and you can look at it. You go, well, that wasn't a failure. That was just an experiment.
Yeah.
That was a lesson, and now I know what doesn't work. So to come back to the yoga mat started to create these shifts in me, and so I knew that I needed to get back on my yoga mat to really figure out what direction I wanted to take.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it occurred to me on my yoga mat that I have this amazing 30 years business experience in the corporate world and as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I understand what it takes. But now I have the business experience with this new mindset, if you will, about what I learned about being in the now. And what I learned about not judging, and what I learned about taking your power back. Because the moment you get off your mat, so I talk about my yoga mat all the time. The moment you get off your mat, mentally, like I'm on my mat, but I'm over on her mat. The moment that I step off my mat, I've lost my power.
So your mat is symbolic of your inward work. Is that?
Yes.
When you say your mat, yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah. So that's kind of like my metaphor for life. Like, Right. So I remember when I first started yoga, and of course you're looking around, you're trying to maneuver through and learn the lingo and chaturangas and sun salutations and all that. You're trying to figure things out. So you're looking around to see what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, if I could just learn how to do a beautiful, where you go from down dog and you come into that plank and you come into a chaturanga, which, in other words, a tricep push up and flip up and then come back. And if I could just do that, I would arrive.
Yeah.
And I realized, and this was a part of my journey, I realized that when I was judging myself and trying to look over to see how they're doing it, I couldn't pay attention to my core, my breath, my arms, my hands, my own foundation. Mm-hmm. And that every part of that pose, every transition was a breath. And I know it sounds kind of silly and kind of like hoo-hoo, like out there, but when you learn to connect to your breath on your yoga mat, you learn to connect to your breath everywhere you go. And when you can be in the moment and not worry about, so if I'm in down dog and I have to go into plank, if I can just be in down dog and be the best that I can be in this down dog, and then connect to my breath as I'm going into plank and just be strong in my plank, that will create a foundation that I can push up into my, my upward dog. Mm-hmm. When you use that mindset, that clarity to your connection, and to meet yourself where you're at, there's power in that. Because if I come to my yoga mat, and this, again, metaphor, so this could be in life to anything. Mm-hmm. If I come to my yoga mat and I've had a tough day, maybe I was in the car for 4 hours, and coming from the corporate world, I drove a lot, right? Yeah. So if I could come to the yoga mat and leave my crap at the door, and literally, I mean, the cell phone, literally, and, in my head, it's there. Whatever email's coming in, I can't do anything about it. I'm only going to work on my mat, but I'm going to accept myself for who I am today. Maybe my arms are tired. Maybe my hips are tired. My legs are tired. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep. When you learn to meet yourself exactly where you're at, there's strength in that. And so this comparison that we do to ourselves, that the way we were yesterday or somebody else, it weakens us. It makes us in victim mode. Oh, I can't do this, or oh, why can't I do that? So I talk about that as like, one of my friends one time said to me, "Can't I just go there?" I go, "Of course you can go there, but you cannot stay there." Mm-hmm. We all have to process these emotions, because emotions are just energy in motion. Right. If we don't process our emotion, then it's going to get stuck. So I learned how to take that yoga mindset and really help people maneuver through their business and just be in the moment. And what can I do right now?
Yeah, I had a feeling that, this must be really a big piece of your process with your clients, is just to help them to center on themselves. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, we all have our zone of genius.
Yeah.
And when you are looking outside of yourself, no matter what it is. And it could be with your yard. It could be the car you drive. It could be anything. When you start looking outward, and it's okay to look outward. Let's talk about, in a business sense. It's okay for me to look outward and see maybe what another business coach is doing and say, hey, I like that result she got. Instead of saying, I suck, right? Switch the narrative in your head. Because when you're in judgment mode, you cannot be in curiosity mode. Nothing good comes out of judgment, but a lot of stuff comes out of curiosity. So when you can learn, so part of my job is to help people look inward, but to help them by asking them bigger questions to get their focus on something else. Because the reality is, wherever you put your focus, that's where your energy is going to go. So if I'm putting my focus on what I don't have, well, I'm going to not have even more of that. But if I put my focus on curiosity on how can I do this, then your subconscious mind is going to kick in, because your subconscious mind, your brain does what it thinks you want it to do. So when you tell your brain, I'm looking for solutions to XYZ, ABC is going to show up. That's just how your brain works. So, I've studied the metaphysical, art of attraction and all of that, The Secret. I've read all of that stuff. But I'm also totally love to geek out on how the subconscious mind works. Here's the thing. Okay. Both say the same exact thing. Right? So, put the energy out and the energy is going to come back, or visualize what you want so your brain knows what it's looking for. It's the same exact message. So whatever you subscribe to. I kind of subscribe to both. I believe in energy. But I also believe in visualization. I believe in, if we one time failed and you think that you're going to do that again, I often say this. I say it because I heard it and it really resonated with me. I often remind my clients, event, emotion, belief. An event will happen. It will create an emotion, and that forms a belief. And that can be as simple as going to a restaurant and they screwed up your order, right? The event is they screwed up your order. The emotion is frustration, anger, feeling like, they shorted you. That created the emotion of they don't know what they're doing, anger, all that. So now your belief system about that restaurant is they're crap. They're trying to cheat you. They get everything screwed up. Event, emotion, belief. So if somebody said something to you, an old boss, a kid on the playground, a sibling, whatever it is, if that has created this belief system that you're not enough or that you can't do something, you've got to go back to that event and give that event a different belief, a different emotion. You have to look at that situation differently so you can have a different emotion, a different belief around it. And it sounds kind of hokey, but it's really not.
So maybe you were going to go here, but could you do that same scenario with the restaurant with a different belief system?
Yeah, you could go and you could just look at it as a different angle. You could look at it as, you could get curious. Why did they screw up my order? You could look at it as, wow, this restaurant is short-staffed today. That is really hard when we've been short-staffed, right? So we've all worked somewhere where things didn't go our way, right? No matter what the industry is, no matter if it's a hair salon, restaurant, yoga studio, I went to my yoga studio the other day and they were out of towel. They give you the mats. They were out of the mats to put over, or the towels to put over our mats, right? So my belief system could be they don't care about me, they stink, or it could be the person who's in charge of that, her baby got sick, and she had the option of taking care of the towels or taking care of her baby. When you start to make these shifts and just get more curious instead of more judgmental, your emotion changes and things don't bother you as much and you let them fall on the wayside, right? So when you can connect to what is important to you, then you can make conscious decisions on what to focus on and what's not, right? Right.
And so I know you work a lot with people around clarity. So does this philosophy of being curious, does that help with clarity? Is that a piece of what you do with?
Yeah. So really what I do is I help female entrepreneurs create systems, gain clarity,
Mm-hmm.
create systems, and implement the action steps.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's all about business, and sometimes there is something going on in their personal life
Right.
that we need to clean this up, so to speak, because it's blocking them.
Right.
It is literally blocking them. I worked with this woman who, sorry, my nose keeps itching, and I apologize for that. I worked with this woman once, and her office was at home. And so for many of the entrepreneurs that I work with, their office is at home.
Sure.
Well, when our office is at home, that's where our laundry, our dishes, our pets, I don't have children except the four-legged kind, but that's where all that stuff is. So even this morning, for instance, I couldn't come to work until I vacuumed my house.
Yeah.
Because I'm so distracted by I have a German Shepherd, and she is shedding like crazy. I was so distracted by that. I couldn't. So sometimes when this woman that I was talking about, she, it sounds so crazy, but her cups were not organized in her kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
She had a fairly new house, and the cups weren't organized, and the cups were everywhere. So literally we had to spend a session figuring out how she could organize this. So in the morning, her husband, her, and her kids had this system in the morning to set her day off. Now, that's not normally what I do. I'm not an organizer, but it was blocking her from getting to her
way.
stuff.
Yeah.
So we needed to gain clarity about what it is that she needed so she could then move on. What obstacle was getting in her way? As crazy as it sounds, that's not my norm, but that's life. And sometimes that life gets in the way. So really what I do is, I love to get into the business. Let's see, where are you? Where do you want to go? How are we going to do it? Create the action steps, foresee the obstacles, right? Because that's what fear is. Fear is just like a warning sign, right? It's just like, I use my German Shepherd as an analogy. If somebody walks by and Lulu kind of whoop, right? If I don't pay attention to her, she's going to have a low growl. Then her hair is going to go up on her back. Then she's going to stand up and start growling. Then she's going to start barking. Then she's going to run to the front door and she is going to go ballistic. When all I really needed to say is, buddy, I got this. I see the person. You're okay. Thank you for the message. We got it. Right? That's what fear is. Fear is saying, hey, danger, danger, danger. And when you say fear, well, what if, if we're creating an email funnel, well, what if the system doesn't work? What if I put all these emails in and it doesn't go off on a timely minute? Okay, great. That's a great point. Then I got to create a system or some action steps to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
So fear is just like a warning sign. It's literally, fear is our imagination going wild. Sometimes it has a valid point. Sometimes it doesn't.
So is it just acknowledging the fear, or what is it? It needs a different analogy you use. You're taking care of business, right? So you're taking care of taking care of Lulu. You're taking care of. So how does that translate with the business?
So how it translates with business is the fear of, I'm afraid to do a Facebook Live. I'm afraid that I'm going to do it and I'm going to mess up. So then we create an action plan and we say, okay, what really is the fear? Because once you peel the labels back, well, I'm afraid that I'm going to forget what I want to say. Okay, that's a valid point. So then we create a flow. Okay, what is your opening? What are the 3 points? How are you going to do that? What's your beginning? What's your meat and potatoes? Recap, give them their call to action. Right? So if your fear is, I'm going to launch a program and no one's going to show up. Well, then we have to make sure that we do everything we can so people can show up. My fear is to raise my price. Okay, well, let's look at that. Where's the fear? Where is it coming from? What's your belief system? Because our subconscious mind is the one that makes our decisions. So event, emotion, belief. So if there is something that's keeping us from moving forward, We need to get in there and see where your belief is to know what action steps. And if your mother told you you couldn't do something, you need to get in there and peel that back and reprogram it to tell you that you can do it. Because it's that knee-jerk reaction that says, I'm not going to do this. Because sometimes the smallest things can paralyze us, right? Sometimes sending out an email, sometimes returning a text that takes 30 seconds, it paralyzes us. And then we have to really ask ourselves questions. Why? And when you can start to peel back the layers and start to see this is where the fear is, or this is where the lack of belief is. Maybe it's that I don't have clarity around this. Maybe that I want to launch this program, but I don't even know what I want it to look like. So, we start asking ourselves questions. Well, what is our intention with it? What do we hope is going to happen? And so when you start answering questions, sometimes what you think you want to do isn't what you want to do at all. Sometimes you realize it's because what someone told you to do. Sometimes it is what you want to do, but you realize that there's a skill that you don't have. And then we go, not a problem. Let's make an action plan to develop that skill. So that's really, I always say people are complicated, but they're not really complicated. Like I don't want to say simplistic, but we are. Like, fear is fear. It comes from somewhere. It comes from your subconscious mind. Sometimes it takes a while to peel back some layers, and sometimes it's quite obvious. And of course, as being a coach yourself, you know that things look so much different from the outside looking in, right?
It's hard to see when you're in the midst of it. I'm sure like when you first lost your job, you had this fear. You were probably consumed with the beginning until you got on your yoga mat and you were kind of able to process and really look, past that, kind of get away from the fear and start figuring out, well, what are the steps that you need to take?
Yeah. And
kind of what you do with people is to help them kind of explore that. Is that right?
Yeah. Because, even for myself, it's amazing because you look at, like, let's say that you want to do something. What's your 10-year plan? Well, if you're trying to put yourself where your 10-year plan is and you're way over here, or if you're trying to run a marathon and you've never even walked a mile, that marathon is going to be way overwhelming. So you break it down into steps.
Right.
You say, well, first I need to walk a mile. And that in itself is going to be an event. So I need a schedule. Because if you've never walked and you're not in the best shape and whatever, you need an action plan. And you need to celebrate those action steps along the way. And you need a support system. And you need to be able to visualize. And you need to set yourself up for success, where you need to drink enough water and eat, enough carbohydrates so you have the energy, and eat your protein after so you're building those muscles up. You need a support system. Maybe that's someone to walk with you, or maybe someone to say, hey, good luck on your walk today. Hey, you know what? You can do this. And, sometimes it's just having that support. And no matter what you do, you have to have support, right? I didn't get where I got without my support. Support comes in many different avenues. But I will tell you, support system is huge. And there was a story, it's not in our section of the book. I don't think it is. But no, it's not. But there was a story. I met this woman, and my only regret is I did not get her information. But I was at a fair, like a woman's fair, if you will. And I was walking, I was just attending, and I was walking, and she was at one of the booths. And I stopped to talk to her and her sister, and literally, no word of a lie, within 5 minutes, she's telling me her life story, which happens to me all the time. She's telling me her life story, and she's in tears. And here's her story. Her story is she was quite overweight. She was about 100 pounds overweight. And that she had gone to Weight Watchers about a year and a half prior to that. And she had lost like 80 pounds. And she felt great. And she loved her Weight Watcher group. And her mother, her own mother, made her feel guilty for spending $8 a week, $32 a month, and an hour and a half away from her kids on Saturday morning. Her mother pressured her so much and told her how selfish it was of her to do that she quit Weight Watchers, and she gained all the weight back and more. I will never, ever forget that story. And
Mhm.
if this woman ever comes across me telling the story, you'll know it's her. And I want her to reach out to me because I will coach her for free.
Mhm.
And it's not about losing weight because I am not a health coach.
Mhm.
But that crushed me to
Mhm.
know that somebody had that much power over her.
Right.
That all of these people at Weight Watchers
Mhm.
that were all positive, that one negative person overtook her power. And I'm speechless over that.
Yeah, it happens, and again, I mean, although this is a very significant relationship, I'm sure there's a big part of probably gained weight is because of this woman. I'm guessing. I mean, who knows? But it's that taking focus off of yourself again. I mean, it's back to the yoga mat. I mean, it's understandable why that would be discouraging, but for that moment, whatever that was, she took her eyes off of her goals, and she put it on this thing that her mother was saying, and believed in that instead of what she was actually keeping. That's the way I see it. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an example. It's a snapshot of what we do in our business.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes we can't make the simplest things. Like I've worked with women I tend to work with women, but this is people in general. I don't want to segregate and say this only happens to women because it certainly doesn't. Mm-hmm. Is that sometimes putting out an email, sometimes putting out a blog, a Facebook post, an Instagram, your Facebook Live can be so paralyzing because we're so fearful. We're fearful that we're going to do it wrong. We're fearful because we're judging ourselves and we're comparing our beginning to somebody else's middle. And we don't know what they went through. We only see their success. We only see their finished product. We don't know what happens behind the scene. But when you're in that spot, you don't even think about those things. You don't even think about that person that you're comparing yourself to. They have fears. They have insecurities. They had bad days. They had failed launches. They had failed businesses or clients that left them. You know, they had their own experience. So I think that we need to honor our zone of genius, honor our journey, and take your power back. And it's not easy, but it starts with the decision. And once you make that decision and you say, okay, you don't have to know all the answers. You just need to know the next step. Right? Just like the marathon. I don't know how I'm going to run 10 miles, but I can't run 10 miles till I run 1 mile. So why don't I just take care of that first mile first?
Yeah, this is really good. So if somebody was in this state, I know you have a free offer, so I'm just going to lead into that. But if they were paralyzed by fear, if they were, just had something catastrophic happen, or they're along the way and they just need a little bit of help to really get the clarity they need, how do they reach out to you?
Well, there's several ways they can reach out to me. They can email me. Directly at jen@jenryancoaching.com. From the book, if you email me at jenryantheauthor@gmail.com, I will send you the freebie there. You can find me in my private Facebook group, which is Women Stepping into Success. You can find me on Instagram. Jen Ryan said.
Jen Ryan. Okay.
Jen Ryan said, yeah. So, but yeah, I'm very easy to find.
Okay. And is there any last thoughts that you have? I mean, is there anything that we didn't cover that you really want to make sure people know about you or about your story?
Oh God, I can't think of anything. This has been so much fun. Just, take your power back and know that you have the power to do anything. And that please stop comparing yourself to anyone else. Get back on your own mat. Meet yourself where you're at today in this moment. And please know that the power is in the present moment. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow never comes because there's always a tomorrow, hopefully, right? There's always tomorrow. So if you're here right now, if I'm right here with you, but I'm worried about what happened yesterday, well, I'm not here. And I'm not in tomorrow because tomorrow's tomorrow and I'm here. So if I'm not here, but I'm not there, I'm nowhere. And you can't do anything from nowhere. So your power is in the present moment. Your power is right here, right now. And in the world that we live in, it is very easy to get lost in the social media, in the fast moving pace, right? Like I grew
Right.
up at a time before Facebook, before email, when you literally had Sunday dinner every day or every Sunday and every night family dinner, and you were in the present moment because you didn't know to be anywhere else.
Right.
So come back to that simplicity of life, and come back to the power moment.
Thank you for that reminder. That is so powerful. Thank you so much for doing this with me. And
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I mean, I'm really excited to see your freebie too.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank
Sounds
you.
wonderful.
I certainly hope that it's helpful. They're just tips and tricks that I learned along the way.
And what's the name of it? What is the name of it?
I believe that's 5 steps to take your power back. Yes.
Okay. Super.
Yes.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I can't wait to read your section.
Yeah.
And it has been so much fun getting to know you and the other authors in this journey.
As well. Thank you.
Thank you.